Hey there. I want to welcome you first of all to being here. I'm Michael Gelbart at Shift in Perspectives, and I'm here to offer you some wisdom, teachings, insights, practices, resources to support you living a better life with deeper intimacy, more connection, and healing for the wounds that we have personally, collectively, and generationally been experiencing. And so today's theme I want to bring to you is about vulnerability, attunement, and intimacy. So today I was at the gym listening to Thomas Hubble, he's one of my teachers, and David White, a brilliant poet whom many of you may know. I encourage you to look both of them up on the internet, Thomas Hubble, Hubl, and David White, Whyte. And they have a conversation on YouTube that I just listened to, and they're tremendous healers around the wisdom of the ages and how we can learn from one another and heal collectively. And one of the quotes that David has in a poem he talks about heartbreak as inevitable. And if we look at that we all go through heartbreak in various ways. Disappointments, breakups, losses, injuries, all kinds of ways that we experience trauma as heartbreak that actually can open us up to something so much greater. It's said in my tradition, which is the Jewish tradition, that there's a phrase, Gam Zelatova, also this is for the good. And when we're in something that's really hard and really challenging and really painful, it's hard to have faith in knowing that something good can come from that. And we all have our stories that we've been told, and stories that we've internalized, and stories that we tell ourselves, labels that we call ourselves, all kinds of ways that we're mean to ourselves and to one another. And it's so important to look at the stories and listen to the stories that we're telling, to be able to have more attunement to those stories and being able then to discover new meanings and teachings and insights that we can bring to reprocessing and re-narrating those stories that we tell. And so we tell ourselves a lot of stories about vulnerability. We don't want to be vulnerable. We're afraid to expose ourselves and share our vulnerability. We think that others won't respect us. We think we're weak if we share. Others are going to think we're complaining. There's all kinds of ways, all kinds of stories we have about vulnerability. So I invite you to take a moment to consider, how do you feel towards vulnerability? What are your stories that you have towards your own vulnerability and towards allowing yourself to share that vulnerability with others? What stops you from expressing vulnerability? And what are the conditions that provide for safety, for you to be able to unburden yourself and allow someone else to support you and help you regulate and help you learn from whatever it is that you're struggling from? Well, if I think about what those conditions are, I think about safety, number one. And how do we create safety in our relationships? It's a very important theme I will be addressing in this and other videos. Well, one way to create safety is by attuning to ourselves, by listening, by paying attention to what our needs are, and paying attention to what kind of boundaries will help us, and paying attention to the stories that we're telling ourselves that may be interfering with that sense of safety internally. So we all have our protective defenses. We all have our strategies that we adapt with that can be very helpful. And some of those strategies then, many of those strategies then can keep people away, whether it's from fear, whether it's with anger, whether it's with fighting impulses, whether it's with all kinds of variations of mistrust, or a dissociation where we disconnect from ourselves and don't know what we're feeling or what we need. So one way to create safety is by attuning to ourselves, by knowing our needs. There are lists of needs. I recommend that you go online. A nonviolent communication community has these lists of needs. There are ways, card games that help us to identify what our longings and our values and our needs are. And by basing in those are inarguable. We can tell someone, I need love, and no one can argue with that. They say, no, you don't need love, or I love you. People will tell their stories and project themselves. So there is risk, of course, in sharing a vulnerability. But by knowing our needs, we're much safer. And knowing what our asks are, that also creates a safety within a conversation, that we're not making demands or making or expectations on others. We're really saying, these are my needs, and then asking for what we may want the other person to provide us, and then letting that be to them. So the attunement strategy is a self-attunement, and there's creating safety for others at the same time. And so how do we create safety for others? Well, how we approach others, sense of respect, timing. Is this a good time to share something with you? I'd like to have a conversation with you. Asking for what we need, and respecting that others have different needs and may not be able to provide for us what it is that we're asking for. And so intimacy, as I see it with vulnerability, is it's putting skin into the game. It's saying, okay, I'm going to ante up here. I'm going to show you mine and invite you to show me yours. And that mutual vulnerability is really intimacy. That's when I think of what intimacy is. It's that being able to really share openly and undefensively what it is that we're really feeling. And it's so important also to discern or differentiate between what our feelings are and what our thoughts are. And feelings I think of in two ways. I think of as sensations in the body. Like right now, I'm sitting here, my shoulders are a little sitting on screens, not so easy. I want to encourage you to stretch and pay attention to your posture and your body and breath. So we drop in and center and resource, right? That's attunement. And then there's emotions, feelings as emotions. So I'm excited to be here with you. I'm hoping to be inspiring to you. I'm feeling open. I'm feeling safe. I feel trust, and that trust is in myself, and trust that however my words land in you are how my words land in you. And hopefully there are some insights that you are taking from this, and some puzzle pieces for your challenges and puzzles. And so tuning into our emotions, the hard emotions, we can say, are based on unmet needs, right? Frustrated needs. And so noticing any hard emotions you may be experiencing in this moment, and seeing if you can bring some friendliness and love towards yourself, some curiosity towards what it is that you're actually experiencing. And then there's the stories we tell. These are the concepts. These are narratives. And we can tell very healing stories and really great teaching stories to one another and ourselves. Or we can tell hard stories to ourselves, and even harmful stories to ourselves or to others or about others. So safety there is created, can be created with words, and danger and threat can be created with words. So I invite us to be really conscious of the stories that we tell, the labels we use. I was just in a workshop with an organization called HAI, H-A-I, the Human Awareness Institute. And there was much healing and so much helpful in the practices that we employ together. And I think that the greatest healing comes from collective healing and a collective energetic listening field and a tuning in field. It's like a symphony orchestra when we're all tuned in in our own instrument. Then we can tune into each other and have a symphony. And so There was a lot of support this weekend at High. You can look that organization up, for making choices consciously, saying no, saying yes, knowing what our boundaries are, and then taking risks from a place of attunement and safety and trust in being sovereign in our choices. So that's what I have to offer you today. I hope this has been valuable for you. Please comment. I will be offering many more videos, and hope to create community here. With all of us need collective healing, I believe. And in order to do so, I also conduct what's called ancestor story circles, where we can collectively share and heal collective wounds, all kinds of trauma that are experienced in our bodies, including the wounds of history. And ancestors have multi-generationally experienced all kinds of displacements and migrations and violence and losses. And so we can heal backwards and forwards, is my belief, and contribute to one another's healing and wisdom. So thank you for listening and staying with me here thus far. And please subscribe to my channel. And also there's a download of navigating triggers that I invite you to sign up on my newsletter at intimacyperspectives.com. And come on, join us for an ancestor story circle sometime. I'm wishing you the best. Thanks for listening, and be well. Michael Gelbart, Shift in Perspective.